The tribal elders have spoken. This is the Daniel Natal Show. Aristotle talks about the general versus the particular. For instance, a medical school teaches students about the general human body, whereas a doctor who deals with patients has to deal with their particular bodies. For instance, the general human being has 5 fingers on each hand, whereas if you're a doctor in practice, you might come across a patient with 4 fingers, or 6. The general represents the archetype, the model, the average. Whereas there is a general humanity, there are particular individuals, Jim, Sally, Steve, and so forth. How the media distracts you is by concentrating on the particular so that you don't notice the general. Take, for instance, the ongoing court case of Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes. According to the New York Times, prosecutors push Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos to take responsibility. We read, under cross-examination, the founder of the failed blood testing startup defended herself, but admitted that she had made mistakes. Theranos was a company whereby its founder, Elizabeth Holmes, claimed that she had a new medical technology to detect a score of different diseases with a single drop of blood. It turned out that her company's claims were overblown, and now she's being singled out as a sort of scapegoat to distract you from a larger phenomenon, that of the zombie company. What is a zombie company? In short, it's a company that doesn't make a profit and that survives on the inflow of money from investors. Instead of using that cash to hire employees or to build factories, the owners of the company use it to fund their own lavish lifestyle. In case this sounds familiar, it is. It used to be called a Ponzi scheme, named after Charles Ponzi in the 1920s. Ponzi scammed investors by claiming that he would make a lot of money on arbitrage between stamps of various nations. His business model was not as lucrative as he made out, but for a long time, no one seemed to notice because Ponzi was living high off the hog. What the public didn't know was that the money he was living off of was not profits from his company, but cash from investors. Ponzi, of course, went to prison. But a new generation of Charles Ponzis and hedge funds have developed a similar idea, investing in unprofitable startups with sketchy business models and buying the company's stock when it's worth pennies. They then create a media campaign to trick gullible retail investors into sinking their cash into these companies by telling the public that the founder of the company is a rock star genius. Think Elon Musk. Even if the company hasn't earned a dime, the hedge fund uses media connections to make the public think that the company is the next hot thing, and they usually do this by image manufacturing and packaging the startup's president as successful, even when they're not. See here.
At this point, the founders can look to raise capital for the next round of funding with other companies in the industry, and most importantly, venture capital firms, which are basically big investment vehicles for rich people. Now, what normally happens at this point, and for the first time ever, the founders will get sat down in an office and be given a choice. They can now sell some of their own equity in the company, and that cash will not go towards business operations, but will instead go into their own personal bank accounts. Normally, this is actually encouraged for 2 reasons. 1, it allows these firms to buy into this company without diluting the ownership as much. And 2, it's kind of important for the founders of now potentially billion-dollar companies to look successful. More investors will need to be attracted in the future, and if the founders are still living at home with their parents, it doesn't send a great sign for the less sophisticated public. Now, this company may repeat this whole process many times over with Part B, C, D, E, F funding rounds, and while doing so, that angel investor will probably cash out their shares as well. This is money that they can use for the next company all over again. Eventually though, these rounds are all shooting for the holy grail of business funding, an initial public offering, where the business will be listed on a public stock exchange and regular mere mortal investors will have a chance to invest their money into the company. Historically, companies have been profitable when they are listed to the public. In 2019 though, only 1/4 of American IPOs were for companies that had ever turned a profit.
Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos got the Elon Musk treatment early on. She was packaged to the public as a brilliant new CEO. As mom and pop investors fell for the con and started clamoring for the company's stock, the hedge fund sees its own holdings in the company inflate in value. Worthless stock that they originally bought for a penny can now be unloaded on suckers for hundreds of dollars a share. After which, the hedge fund gets out of Dodge and seeks another startup CEO to build up in the public eye. Rinse and repeat. All of these companies, of course, fail, but to the hedge funds, it didn't matter if they had products that would take off or not. Regarding Theranos, the hedge funds that built it up couldn't care less if the blood testing technology worked or not. That was almost beside the point. The thing was to create a buzz around a particular personality, hornswoggle gullible investors, and engage in a pump and dump scheme. They can always count on naive fund managers of firefighter, police, or teachers' union pension funds to buy the stock when it's high. Once it crashes, all these working class people are of course wiped out. So what you're seeing is the transfer of wealth from the working class to the Wall Street class. By one estimate, almost 50% of companies on the stock exchange are now in effect zombie companies. These are companies, to repeat, that don't turn a profit, but whose rockstar CEOs you've been told about by CNBC, Time Magazine, the New York Times, etc. Wall Street players using the media to pump up worthless stocks is as old as Jay Gould in the 19th century. So as Elizabeth Holmes is being highlighted in the media now for her villainy, ask two questions. Who put all those magazine covers out? And secondly, what has she done differently than, say, Pfizer with its false claims, or AstraZeneca, or Johnson & Johnson? On display are companies whose products don't do what they claim they do, just like Holmes's product. But if the feds have their way, Holmes will likely do jail time, whereas the CEOs of these other fraudulent companies and snake oil products will be sitting pretty. So as the media has you concentrating on the particular, pay more attention to the general. Notice the bigger picture. Elizabeth Holmes is a symptom of a vastly larger and more dangerous problem. The thing is, every time the feds want to make you think they're doing their job, they usually string up some hapless scapegoat, like when they went after Martha Stewart for insider trading in 2002, or when the college pay-for-play scandal started and they arrested wholesome actress Lori Loughlin, when in reality, the beneficiary of such scams were more like people like Jared Kushner. It's like watching Al Capone operating, the feds arresting the mom from the Brady Bunch to make you think that those are the real villains. So rest assured tonight, they got that dastardly Elizabeth Holmes off the street. America's financial system is now safe and sound. The John Birch Society provides a national program designed to counter the big government agenda and to restore our rights. Standing for constitutional freedoms for more than 60 years, the John Birch Society has been the force that protects and restores American liberty and independence. Check them out at jbs.org.